Hey everybody, Havoc here. Gonna do another tank review. Today we're gonna do the T-43. It's the Tier 7 Russian medium tank. If you've been watching my videos, I recently did a review on the T-34-85, which was the Tier 6 Russian medium tank. The tank was a lot of fun, and I had a lot of success in it, and this T-43 is no exception. I would put this tank up amongst the top Tier 7 medium tanks in the game. I still reserve the top spot for the T-20 American medium tank, but this tank is a close second or third in the mix with tanks like the Comet or the Chiri. Alright, let's get into the review. I'm going to talk about the equipment loadout that I recommend, the consumables and the ammo loadout that I recommend, and then we'll talk about the crew skills that I would prioritize for this tank. Then we'll talk a little bit about tank characteristics and a recommended playstyle, and I'll attach some gameplay clips. Alright, going into equipment, pretty self-explanatory at first is the gun rammer. This is a staple item that will always be selected when it's available. The only time it wouldn't be available is if this was an autoloader, which it is not. Otherwise, the other staple item that I usually go with is vertical stabilizer, but in this case I went with GLD because vertical stabilizer is not available at this tier 7 level medium tank. So going with GLD, much like vertical stabilizer, it is going to directly enhance your gun handling capabilities, albeit not as efficiently as a vertical stabilizer might, but still 10% reduction to your aim time is a significant boost to your gun handling. And with this tank, I feel like that was the most important thing and to be prioritized with this one slot. I guess I could have gone with vents here, which would have given me like an overall boost to several different factors of my tank, which is great, but I think that gun handling is so important with this tank. Not spending a lot of time aiming in and possibly taking return fire from your opponents, that I decided to go with the GLD directly giving me that 10% instead of an overall boost of a lower level. Coated optics, if you watch any of my videos, you know that much like light tanks, I recommend that medium tanks take advantage of their concealment value and their improved view range over heavier, bigger tanks. This not only is good for starting the game using some spotting techniques to get the ball rolling, if you will, but it also is very important at the end game where you may be up against some bigger, slower tanks with less camo value, and you can use your view range and camo to keep your distance, detect them, fire at them undetected, and potentially clutch the game for your team. Alright, so rammer, optics, GLD. Next, let's go into consumables. I'll start down here because it's a lot easier. First aid kit, repair kit, and I went with a premium consumable. Premium consumable, this tank has a 12% chance of fire, which is relatively low in this game. I don't remember having a lot of problems as far as starting on fire in the T-43, but that could always help if you don't get shot in the rear or in the sides very often. Less likely that you will catch on fire. But I did not run a fire extinguisher, so I guess I'm just being risky. Maybe I played too many light tanks. But as I said, I didn't find it to be a significant problem with constantly starting on fire in this tank. So that's how I ran those. Ammo loadout, without getting too far ahead of myself when talking about the gun, I will state right now, the AP shells have 144 millimeters of penetration, which is very lackluster for Tier 7 medium tank. With that, so therefore, it's important that you bring a good amount of APCR, which has I think 199 millimeters of penetration, which is really good. I mean, that the APCR works just fine on this tank. The point being is, if you're gonna be bottom tier, you're gonna want to have a good amount of APCR. If you're top tier, you primarily should be firing AP still. There's plenty of tanks, plenty of shells on board this tank. So I recommend a mixture of like 50-50 AP and APCR. I think I did something like 20, and 5. But that's how I would run it. That's what I was most comfortable with, was 50-50. I felt like that's plenty of shells to use AP primarily if you're top tier, and use APCR primarily if you're bottom tier. Okay, and next we're going to go to crew skills. Not too different than what I normally do for a medium tank. As you can see, I definitely felt like it was important to do the camouflage skill with both view ranges, and then muffled shot as well, which gives me full capabilities to not only spot for my team, but possibly snipe undetected on tanks, especially later in the game. But the only little difference with this tank maybe than other tanks is I did prioritize the gun skills very early on. The gun handling on this tank can be kind of poor, and it's very important to get the best gun handling you can to really maximize this tank's attributes. So I did go with gun handling skills immediately. You can see now that I'm training repairs. Some people would have done repairs much earlier, and I understand that being tracked in this tank without repairs is probably going to cost you your life. So I understand how important repairs are, but I've waited to this moment here after all my view range and camo and basic view range and camo are completed, and my gun handling skills have been completed. So that's crew skills for me, and now let's talk about this tank a little bit. Number one, let's talk about the gun. I keep alluding to it. I've told you about the bad AP pen. Here's the real deal. This is the same gun as the Tier 6 tank. And I know a lot of people say right away, wait a second, I went from Tier 6 to Tier 7, and I have the same gun. Okay, this is a bad tank. Not necessarily, and I'll tell you why. Several things about this tank are improved from the T-34-85, which make it a great tank. But unfortunately, one of them is not the gun. It is the same gun. It is the exact same gun as far as aim time, accuracy, and penetration and alpha. The only exception being that the rate of fire did go up with this tank from the T-34-85, which fires 10 rounds per minute, and this one fires 11.11. So it's a slight bump to the reload rate and therefore the DPM. But other than that, it is the same gun. You could look at it glasses half empty, glasses half full, and state that, oh, this is a terrible Tier 7 medium because it has a Tier 6 gun. Not exactly. I would look at it as the Tier 6 T-34-85 Russian medium is OP because it has a Tier 7 gun. That's the way I look at it. But anyway, the reason this is a good tank, even though you're carrying the same gun as the Tier 6 tank, is because this tank had improved in many other fields over the T-34-85. It had a concealment value boost from the Tier 6, and it also had a significant armor boost from the Tier 6. As you can see now, we're going to look at the armor. It's more about an overall armor. Right here you can see that basically the overall armor of the tank is around 90 millimeters, which isn't that great in any one area. It's not like you can say, like, oh, I have all this turret armor, so I'm a hull down tank. That's what I need to do. I need to get hull down. You have a little bit of turret armor, a little bit of everything. But this amount of armor on the sides is actually where it's most impressive, because this will actually allow you to side scrape if necessary right here. The more side armor you have is much more effective because of the angles that you'll be fired at most of the time when you're facing your opponent. Side armor, even if it is a small amount of millimeters, is incredibly more effective. So from this angle here, being shot at the side is an auto ricochet. So this tank, I wouldn't say that it's a tank you want to bait shots and then say, well, I'll definitely bounce it with my armor. It's kind of a bouncy tank. It's a 50-50. If you're moving a lot and if you're throwing different angles at your opponent, you can definitely bounce a lot of shells. But it's not a tank where you can just sit there, hold down, and just let people shoot at your turret and not get penned. You will get penned eventually. You might get a bounce here and there. But the overall armor on this tank and the angles are very good. The maneuverability is quite good. As I said, the tank got a concealment buff from the Tier 6. The view range did go up from Tier 6 to Tier 7. I think this tank is a lot more viable as a spotter than the Tier 6 was, because it has a better camouflage value and higher view range. But the fact that it has a good buff to its armor compared to the Tier 6, I know it does have the same gun as the Tier 6, but the tank is, and this is the strength of the tank, I'll say it right now, the number one strength of this tank is that it's a well-rounded overall tank. It's good in all departments. There's no major weakness. If there was a weakness of the tank, you could say, well, you got the Tier 6 tank's gun still. And I would say, okay, I understand that, and 144 millimeters of AP penetration is pretty weak. But other than that, I would say the tank is overall very well balanced and good at everything. It has good armor, good mobility, good concealment value and view range, and the gun is actually, I mean, that gun, just talk about this gun real quick, because I remarked several times while I was playing it that this gun has a very high rate of fire. It feels like it's a very strong DPM. I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but I can just feel that this tank has actually a very high DPM for a tier 7 medium tank. And if you're penning tanks consistently and efficiently using your DPM and rate of fire, then I think that's where you're the source of your high damage games. And I've had several high damage games where I felt like, wow, this tank is really just spitting out damage. If you're hitting tanks on the side and you're penning them regularly, this tank is a damage monster. So the gun is a little underwhelming, the fact that it is the tier 6 gun, but the rate of fire is quite impressive. And again, stack that on top of the armor, the mobility, the concealment value, and the view range, and it's a very strong, well-rounded tank in all areas. So the recommended playstyle is a kind of a medium range fighter. You can do a little bit of everything. Like you have the spotting and view camo and view range to maybe do some longer range type of operations, and you'll see that in my gameplay where I can do a little bit more sniping kind of things. But you also have the armor, as I said, to do a side scrape. So if you wanna brawl with tanks, you can get, it's quite bouncy in the armor, especially if you're a top tier tank. And if things really hit the fan, you can pull up to the side of a building and go into a side scrape, and you could definitely bounce some shells here off the side. So I would say it's a well-rounded tank, can do all types of things, and that is the strength of the tank. Alright, I'm going to throw down some gameplay, and that's it. Leave your questions at the bottom of the video, and I will see you guys out there. Area?
Yeah.
E2, E3. Alright, I'll go up there. Well, what was that? Was I going to go city? No, I was never going to city.
Got enemies incoming. Either take them out or capture their base. Let's go!
They got some Chaffies, a T-50. You might see some competitive spotting.
Well, I'm sure the spotting they're doing is just cruise controlling.
Yeah, that's which is the most dangerous for you, because.
Ready to fire on target.
Spotted.
Oh, M6, you got so lucky you don't even know it.
That one drilled straight through. We got him. They're hit. Been detected.
I was lit by the T-43.
Target locked.
There's something else over there that I'm shooting.
Yep, I see it. Should I just go kill the T-50 now? I think I will.
They found us. She's loaded.
Oh, gotcha, buddy.
Releasing target. They're knocked out.
I found it.
Enemy
25-2.
exposed.
Churchill.
Artie. Oh, Artie hit him. That was our Artie. I was like, I just hear shh. I'm like, Artie. Just calling it before I go. Bye-bye, everyone.
Fire on target. Dropping target. We didn't penetrate their armor. Ready to fire. Unlocking target.
Put some distance on this guy. Or start shooting. What is this?
Locked on.
I'm gonna go do a spotting run.
Yep. Oop. Tire 131.
We've got a lock. Enemy armor is damaged.
I am putting fire on the Tire 131. I'm guessing he's your spot.
They're hit.
Nope. I spotted him, but I didn't get the assist for whoever just shot.
Well, now he's fucking tracked.
Looks like that one went right
Oh,
through.
this is so nice just to take a 131 out.
Penetration.
Like, that's a dangerous thing.
truck.
Got him. Locked on.
Okay, now the Churchill, on the other hand, is a real problem because I think on the... Ooh, the OI. There's an OI.
Ooh,
Penetration.
it's so easy looking.
No way? Towards our base? I mean, he's not really... Yeah, he doesn't know what to do.
He doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah, this...
There's shit on
like,
top of that.
trying to explain to me, like,
there's a
how do
ton
I
of
tell
shit
you
up there.
that he's not a threat to you? Where's he looking? I don't know. Anywhere but where he should be looking?
Enemy vehicle eliminated.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm right there.
Well,
There's
yeah, if you're ready.
T-43 champion.
Target locked.
Ooh, I saw him. Where'd he go?
He's still there.
Yeah, but he's not, like, right where he was. He had to have
He's
moved.
not here.
There he is.
He did, he's
Locked
running.
on.
Alright. This is a little too conservative for me.
Ready to
Gonna
fire
have
on target.
They have a bunch of heavy tanks left, so... Ooh, here's one, here's one, here's one.
That one left a big hole.
I'll get this.
Our team destroyed an enemy.
Okay, the champion's coming after you. Let him come down on the hill after you so I can help you. Oh wow, he wants you bad. Dude, look at this guy. Oh, he's gonna... Oh, I tracked him. He's gonna love the fucking traverse on that tank once he comes after you. He's going like...
Yeah, I've done some pretty stupid shit in this, like that. The best one was on Abbey when we were racing for the middle against an RU, and I handbraked around the corner and spun around and shot him in the ass and lit him on fire. As he just tries to turn and runs into the building.
We've got a lock. Penetration. Scratch another
Not today, Arta!
There's
Yeah, these two are actually gonna be quite a
Oh, wait.
handful.
They gotta be right here somewhere.
They are. There's one of them in the buildings back there at like F0,
Oh
I think.
shit.
Yep. Well, the good news is they're not full health, so I'll go after the Tiger P first, so maybe give our team a chance to win.
The enemy knows our location. We didn't
Ooh, I
penetrate
bounced the
their
Tiger
armor.
P. Yep.
Looks like that one went right through. Target.
I just need you to shoot him once.
Oh.
Did he shoot you?
Yeah. Yeah. Almost fucking killed me.
They spotted us. Our engine's been hit. We can't move as
He just
fast.
shot you now.
We prepared the engine, but we can't go very fast.
You didn't have time to worry about me. He's got too many other problems. That was a very good game.
Mission
That was a good game
accomplished.
for me too.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I was hitting almost primarily your lights, and I definitely had a great game, so... Yeah.
Yeah, you had a good game.
Yeah, which means you probably had some pretty sick assisted.
2200. Mark went up 2%. 83.77.
Armor. Oh, we got nines again.
Fucking 9s again.
Yeah,
God
dude, this is not
damn.
feeling good, man. I think we're hitting that really bad rush hour now. West Coast, East Coast, fucking Japanese, all of it's coming online. Might want to go to Fury.
Yeah, avoid the Pershing.
And I think I might go over the other count for Furies. Or for Thailand. I don't know, this time of night I think I might want to... I've been trying to mark up my 5100, which I don't have any money for. Or my IS-3. But that was for competition, which I don't think is going to happen anytime soon, so...
I'm fucking lit too. Fucking guy, I hate this new map.
Locked on.
So stupid that you just shoot and you're instantly lit.
Like we're shooting spitballs.
On PC, you could sit up here for days and not get lit.
That's gotta hurt.
Oh, well, that bounce.
Releasing
So why?
penetration.
I can't pen him.
We didn't penetrate their armor.
You still there?
I don't know.
Nah.
Or not.
Target locked.
T-28, T-28.
That one drilled straight through. Looks like that one
God
went
damn
right
it.
through.
How did I not track him?
One thing I've noticed with this tank is it's absolutely horrible at tracking shit.
Zero penetration.
I'm not having better luck, dude. I had, like, my choice of where to shoot him. I
Target
couldn't
locked.
track him.
I hit him in the front track wheel and did no tracking.
so did I.
It's just fucking
like
He
pain.
might be just really hard to track, too. This Oni, dude. Please tell me you're farming him as well.
Yeah.
Oh, he's got a
I've pinned
Oho
him, like,
brother over
3
there, too.
times.
They found us.
What I got lit by? Oh. Oh, shit. M103, that's gonna fucking smart. Oh, they're pushing up, dude. Pushing up.
Target locked.
Oh, I'm
Behind
getting
us.
shot in the back.
Yeah.
Oh
So
fuck.
they're
Abort!
pushing up.
Abort!
Should we go back? Let's go back. Yeah, let's go to the base. Or let's go to 9-0. Let's do any of the above.
Yeah, but we can't really spot them from 9-0.
We still have tanks alive.
Especially if they get on our spawn. I mean, this entire hill's blocking us from spotting them.
Punched a hole in
IS-3.
their
This
armor.
IS-3.
Locked and loaded.
Oh, I would have hit him with the rocks or
I
whatever.
got him, buddy.
Vehicle destroyed.
Fucking tank can't hit a goddamn thing to save its life when it's standing right in front of you and your life depends on it. But, you know, cross map, IS-3, APCR, no problem. Got that all day long. So is this how the TDs do it? I don't play TDs. They just sit up here all day and just like a farm.
Yep. So eventful, isn't it?
Looks like fun.
Ready to fire on
Object
target.
Object 430.
Oh, I missed. Should have aimed that, I just snapped it.
She's loaded.
Everything I do is a snapshot, by the way, because you can't not snapshot. Oh, this guy, is this T-43? He is, he's in the middle of the field.
Tracked him.
Nice. I'm gonna try and perma-track him.
Should probably completely threw your shot
Looks
off.
like that one went right through.
Kill him! Kill him!
I got his track
Oh.
again. No, I think he's tracked. Yeah, he's tracked
Oh
and
wow.
I'm yeah.
He just fucking blind hit me.
Oh, did he?
Almost.
I hate when tanks
Yeah,
blind
well, he
fire
hit the
and it
fucking...
works.
He hit the garage or whatever this is right beside me.
I think it's bullshit when tanks can blind fire and it works, because whenever I blind fire, I never hit anything.
Yeah. Someone hit me for 39 damage. This is gonna be a close game.
I know. That's good though. We're full health.
Still got my 15 round of APCR. I'm gonna try and blind fire this guy. Nope, nothing. Oh, there's 2 of them there.
Do you want to move up a little or no? We'll get lit.
We'll get lit. I mean, what is that?
430
medium
version
tank
2.
there?
We could go push the. We want to push the 430 version 2? Oh wait, isn't there a TD over
Not
there too?
really. Yeah.
So if this medium keeps falling back, then eventually we'll be able to see.
Well, I'm thinking one of us could go to like help that medium. Oh no, he's dead.
Not now. They're still pushing across. You really can't see them?
No.
We lost
This
a
is not
friendly
good.
vehicle.
This is so not good.
This is no longer a close game. This has now become a drumming.
Just to throw it out there, though, we both have the skill set to win this game for our team.
I don't know if we can do it from here though. They're gonna have a 430 version
Friendly
2
vehicle destroyed.
at the hill. Actually, no, he went to help them. So now we have to outspot these heavies. Which, they seem so
It's
far.
two heavy tanks. One of them's an IS, and the other is probably that Tiger one in a platoon with them.
Jeez, I feel like we should go jump them before the rest of the tanks show up.
You want to?
I'd rather be over there.
I have no idea how much
fuck.
health they have. Oh, what the fuck is
Target
that?
locked.
Can you shoot this
Enemy
tank?
in sight.
Yeah.
That got him.
Oh no, the
Looks like that
fucking
one went
medium
right
heavy
through.
tank's coming out. You gotta get this guy out of here
Looks
now.
like that one went right
You gonna
through.
be able to kill him?
Yeah.
Locked on. Our
Dead.
team just wasted an enemy.
Medium's coming behind us.
You kill the medium.
The answer is no.
Oh, fuck, the IS got the 122.
Another kill for our team.
You wanna go jump the IS? He's by himself.
We have tanks coming up behind us, just so you know.
I know, that's what I'm saying. We could get.
I'm shooting
oh,
the
I'm
IS right now. I
fucking
can
dead.
shoot him.
Yeah, yeah, but he's farming me. I have 300 health. He
Alright, I'll
shot
get
me
him. I'll get him.
twice.
Fuck it. Follow me.
We're going. We both
I'm
gotta
going first.
go.
No, I'm going for. I'm taking the hit.
Enemy knows our location.
He's still staring. I'm fucking dead. He just pixel sniped me behind a fucking hill. I just got killed by fucking PP.
Oh my god.
Lost and cracked.
The fuck hit you? ST1. Oh, we still have a full health IS-6.
That's what I'm trying to say, dude. We don't have this.
Ready to fire.
Plus, we had a full health version. Object 430 version 2 coming up behind us, dude. Didn't you hear what Angry said about that tank? Object 430
Yeah,
version
you
2?
can't auto-lock it.
OP.
We're 86.
Alright, wasn't full health, but still, he was enough of a handful that we would have had to jump him, you and me together. Which, you know, I think I threw that out there a little bit. I'm like, well, we could go jump this 430 version 2 and then run down the 9-0.
Their tier 9s carried their team. And
Dude.
our tier 7s carried our team.
Dude, look at that score! Like, how, that is unequivocal evidence that nobody's doing anything in this fucking game. I'm saving that.